Good morning, garden friends. How are you guys today? Welcome back to the garden. Today we're going to go take a look at Yves Piaget. Yves Piaget is a rose that is bred by Meilland roses, or Meilland roses, or Meilland roses, depending on who you talk to. It's a French rose breeder who breeds some of my absolute favorite roses. Meilland roses, they breed Bolero, which is an absolute must, I feel like, for pretty much all gardens. It's one of those roses that just make you feel like a rock star, you know, as like this master rosarian, because it just does all the hard work for you. You don't ever have to prune it, and it's such a low maintenance rose that gives you such amazing blooms. It's an amazing shrub in the landscape, would make an amazing hedge. So Bolero definitely is one of my absolute favorite Meilland roses, and then of course all of the Edens, the original Eden, white Eden, pretty and pink Eden, red Eden. They're all spectacular roses for this part of the country. I live in Southern California, not too far from the coast, where we have very thick, heavy clay soil and very dry, hot, arid conditions with scorching sun. And their roses do just spectacularly here in California. They actually have a test garden up in San Jose. So if you are up in that area, or if you're ever visiting that area, definitely check them out. And you can even see roses there that are unnamed and still not even commercially available yet. They test them out for many years before releasing them to the market. I believe it takes something like 10 years for a rose to make it to market. And so back to Yves Piaget. Yves Piaget is a rose that I actually was really debating about for years, whether or not I should grow it in the garden, because it has a reputation for being a bit of a, let's just say, awkward and gangly looking rose. Not so much in the blooms. As you can see, the blooms are stunning. And this isn't even like the most stunning of the blooms. This is actually, I would say, a pretty modest sized bloom. It's probably about 4 to 4.5 inches across this bloom flush that I'm getting. But like when it blooms in the springtime, oh my goodness, the blooms are like 5 to 6 inches easily, if not more. It just like stops you in your tracks. It's so huge and massive. It reminds me of like a peony, and the fragrance on it, oh, the fragrance is so captivating. It's sweet and fruity, but it has a hint of warmth to it, like a hint of spice. And it's just so intoxicating. Like you just keep wanting to smell it and go back for more. And the quality about this rose that is its superpower, I would say, is the fact that it makes such a wonderful cut rose. It has a really nice base life, and it has these nice, long, sturdy stems, smooth, and then every now and again you'll get a little thorn. But for the most part, as you can see, the stems are really nice and sturdy and long, which is what a lot of people look for in a cut rose. I think the other cut rose that comes to mind, again, that's also a rose that's bred by Meilland roses, is Princess Charlene de Monaco. Oh, I can't believe I didn't mention that rose earlier. Also one of my absolute favorite roses. Not as much for a garden rose, but as a cut rose, she is amazing. I feel like she's even a better cut rose. Like her blooms last longer, as a cut rose than it does in the garden, and her color shifts as well when you bring her inside. She goes from like a peachy color to more of like a cooler pink blush color, and oh my goodness, she'll last, I feel like, a good week for me, and will open really nice and slow when I bring her inside. Whereas on the plant, she'll last, especially if the weather's really hot, maybe a good 4 days or so. So she's a rose that I always, as soon as she blooms, I cut her and I bring her inside to enjoy, because she has such an amazing vase life and really just takes on a whole new personality when I bring her inside. And she smells like peaches and apricots. So that's another rose to add to your list if you love having roses to bring inside the house to enjoy. I love combining Princess Charlene de Monaco with Bolero. I feel like that's the most amazing bouquet and like sensory experience, are those two blooms together in a vase by your bedside. The intoxicating fragrance that you get from both of them, oh my goodness, it's just so luxurious. But so going back to what I was saying, I was really debating on whether or not I should grow this rose in the garden, because it tends to have such a sort of awkward gangly shape to it. And oftentimes at the nurseries, you find specimens that have a very sort of gangly, awkward shape. And so I stayed away from those for many years until I came across this specimen here, which is nice and full and bushy. And I'm finding that the nurseries are starting to carry more specimens of Yves Piaget with a bushier form that's more appropriate for the garden. And so that would be my major tip with growing this rose, is to find a specimen that has a nice shape and form and has a lot of nice bushy growth to it. If you're looking for a rose that would be, let's just say would be more appropriate to integrating in to a more popular spot in your garden, in an area that gets a lot more, let's say, foot traffic, and you're wanting to have it act as a landscaping rose, that's what I would suggest. It wasn't until I came across a friend who mentioned that she had grown like 3 Yves Piaget and it behaves amazingly as a garden rose for her, that my mind was changed, because up until that point I'd only seen Yves Piaget grown as a cut rose and kind of almost like hidden in a part of the garden where, let's say, you don't see quite as well, and it's only grown to bring inside. And another little tip I have for you is, if you're unsure about where to grow a specific rose, you know, as we know, if you've started growing roses, not all roses are going to be happy in every single spot in your garden. And so a great thing that you can do to help you decide on the best spot for the rose before you fully commit is to dig a hole and leave the rose in the pot and just sink it inside that hole, which is actually what I've done here. I've just sunken this rose into a hole in the ground to kind of test out this specific spot and see if it will be happy here in this spot before I fully commit and do all the hard work of, you know, planting it And I also don't want to disturb the root ball too much too. So if for some reason this rose lets me know within a few weeks that, hey, I'm not so happy here, it starts looking kind of, you know, dropping its leaves or turning different colors, or the blooms are starting to droop or whatever, you know, it'll tell you. It has its way of communicating with you that it's not so happy in this spot. Then you can easily just pull up the pot and test it out in a different spot until you find the right spot in the garden for that specific rose. So that's my little tip of the day for you. And if you are wondering what that purple flower that you're seeing kind of all around Yves Piaget, this is a variety of Salvia called Azure Blue. I'll leave it in the notes for you in case you're interested in it. One of my favorite varieties of Salvia. It actually is just such a lovely shade. In real life it has more of a blue tone to it, depending on the light in the sky as well, if it's a sunny bright day or if it's more of an overcast day. But I feel like companion plants in this color scheme is so perfect, and the blues and lavenders and purples is so perfect for the types of roses that I'm drawn to, the pinks and blushes and peaches. And the pollinators love this flower. I'm really drawn to all varieties of salvias. Like, I have a bit of an addiction to salvia. They're just such great plants for this area. They bloom and bloom and bloom. The flowers last forever, and they come in such great color variations. And I mean, just look at the delicate nature of the blooms on them. And they just come back from year to year with very little maintenance required. They're also, I find them to be really drought tolerant as well. Some other companion plants I have growing around the roses is over here. If you've seen other videos in my garden, you know I have another obsession with this plant. Oh my goodness. And the reason why, I wish you could smell this. It smells like a vacation for your senses. It smells so good, you guys. If you could just get in here and smell how amazing. This is lemon balm, and it's wonderful, not only for like being a great ground cover for your garden. I find that I don't have to mulch. It becomes like a green carpet, this lush green carpet, and then it also has wonderful blooms on it that brings in pollinators in the spring and late summer. It has so many wonderful uses. I use it in culinary uses, so I'll make a cold iced tea with it or brew a hot tea with it. I also use it for making kombucha. It's wonderful dried, and you could even add it to sugar and make lemon balm sugar or lemon balm salt. Another wonderful use for it is to use it as filler for your roses. So you just cut off these stems and stick it into a vase with your roses. I actually did this recently for a friend, and she was like, oh my goodness, what is that amazingly fragrant like filler that you put in there? And I was like, oh, it's lemon balm. And so it's wonderful as filler for the roses. It has like another like nice sort of experiential sensory experience when you're giving a bouquet to someone. And they can also, if you grow your roses organically and you have an organic garden, what you can do is once, um, let's say the blooms have passed their prime, you can actually have your friends save the blooms and also use the lemon balm and just add some warm water, hot water to it, and make a nice tea, a lemon balm and rose petal tea, right, with a little raw honey. I mean, just, oh, you can have it iced in the warm weather, or you could serve it warm for, you know, right before bedtime. Rose petal tea is supposed to be really wonderful, have a really calming and soothing effect. If you have problems falling asleep at night, it is said to be really wonderful for helping you to get a good night's sleep. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this look at Yves Piaget today, and I'll see you guys back in the garden again next time. Bye, guys.